are back, and at the start of today's show we mentioned that today, Wednesday the 23rd of June, marks Olympic Day. It also marks the UN's observance of Public Service Day, and locally it's being commemorated under the theme Proud to Serve T&T. The COVID-19 pandemic, of course, has reshaped the way we approach the world of work and has forced many of us to adapt to a way of operations with various services now available online. We've heard about the importance of digitization since the very start of the pandemic, and we're happy to have as our next guest the Minister of Public Administration and Digital Transformation, Senator Allyson West. Good morning to you, Senator West.
Good morning, Ardene. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And tell us what is so special about commemorating this year's UN's observance of Public Service Day and why you've chosen the theme of being proud to serve T&T.
Well, it is important as we go through life and deal with people from on a daily basis to step back every now and then and recognize and show appreciation for the contribution that these people have made and are making to our lives. In this particular case, what we're seeking to do is recognize and appreciate public servants for the contributions that they're making to Trinidad and Tobago. Now, people working in the public service are often vilified because of the constant attacks in respect of the less than stellar service that is often meted out to members of the public. And so we don't often step back and say, despite those things which we admit occurs and need to be addressed, we need to appreciate that every day there are thousands of people working, many of them behind the scenes, to provide the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and others with services to keep the country running. And as we would have seen during this pandemic, we have a lot of hardworking, dedicated public servants. It's most obvious in the health industry at the moment because of the nature of the pandemic, but supporting all of those things and all of the various services that continue to happen in Trinidad and Tobago are the people who are ensuring that our virtual platforms in the government continue to work and don't crash. The people who are taking care of our security, the people who are cleaning the streets, and all of these people are constantly serving the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and we have to recognize them from time to time, so that's what today is about.
And do you think that notion of being proud to serve T&T, that aspect of pride, is that something you're actively working to, I don't want to say instill, but certainly maybe impart to members of the public service who, you know, there's a lot of cynicism, as you admitted, around public servants and whether it's their ability or willingness to serve in a particular way. Do you think that element of pride is something you are very conscious of and are actively working towards?
Yes, it is, Ardene. Even when I worked in the private sector, what I realized was that a lot of people, unless they're really frontline, do not see the impact of what they are required to do on the ultimate service that's provided to the public. And I always found it was important for people to understand, even though your job may be considered small, your contribution is vital to the end product. So you need to appreciate that, and therefore you need to give it your all so that the customer is ultimately satisfied. There are people in the public service who work hard. There are people in the public service who need to do better. But I think that what some of them at least would have recognized during this period is that when you serve the public recognizes it. Because I don't think that there are too many people in Trinidad and Tobago who do not appreciate now how hard the medical staff is working. The doctors and nurses and all the support staff around them are working to protect and save our lives. People recognize and appreciate that. And I think public servants looking on at that will see that if you serve the public properly, you will get a different reaction from them and be able to interact with them more positively. So it is important for them to recognize the nature of their contribution and the impact it has, and the fact that they can make all of Trinidad and Tobago proud.
Minister, you oversee a very interesting pairing of responsibilities with respect to public administration and digital transformation. And I want to say that the irony may not be lost on many that the public service seems to be the most dire in terms of the need for that digital transformation where it has not happened. What are some of the challenges, especially now, in making that a reality? Because the fact that last year, upon the formalization or institution of this ministry in the after the last election, digital transformation and digitization has featured heavily in budget speeches, of course, in the government's articulation of priorities. What are the challenges really preventing you and your administration from getting to where we need to be in the public service?
Okay, so there are several challenges. One is that although the government has for quite some time been spending money on digital platforms and equipment and so on, it was not done in a structured, integrated way. It was all very siloed. So we have various ministries with various platforms, approaches, process engineering plans that they implement that are all disjointed. So what we have to do is understand where we are at the moment and come up with a plan to integrate the service so that we can achieve the objective of transforming what we have into what is more of a single, connected, interoperable unit that serves the public best, as opposed to this ministry does this, full stop. So don't ask me what the other ministry does. I have no interaction with them. For example, what struck me when I first came into the public service to serve in this capacity was when we were trying to implement property tax. And to do that, we needed information on property. So I was trying to gather that information. And what I found was that a lot of the information resided in a lot of government ministries. So the government ministries spent money and time and effort gathering information on properties. It's in agriculture, it's in T&Tech, it's in TT Post, it's in all over the place. But the position taken by the public servants in those different places was that the information could only legally be used for the purpose that they gathered it for, and therefore they were not able to share it. So we're not operating as a unit. So you have one government spending money 5 times to gather the same information. Things like that need to be reset. It requires not only buying equipment, it requires changing laws, it requires looking at every process in the public service and re-engineering them. Because how digitization has been seen in the past is you have a process, and what you do to digitize it is to throw a machine in, input your data, and you think that's it. But really, you don't achieve a positive result, or you don't take it as far as you can unless you re-engineer the process. So our approach is to look at all the processes, re-engineer them to make them more citizen-centric, to reduce the number of steps a citizen needs to take to get things done, to ensure that where we have information that we need to provide a service or support, if it's already in the system, we shouldn't have to be asking the citizen again and again to produce that kind of information. So it is a mammoth task that involves all sorts of facets of activity. You have retraining of the public servants, you have securing the best hardware and software, you have sensitizing the public, you looking at the infrastructure, you're extending the network and coverage of Wi-Fi. So while we are working to put all these things together, the rollout and the impact on the citizens have been slow for the past few months, but very soon we expect you will start to see some impact in respect of what we have been doing.
So can you tell us then, if you had to use a percentage of the work done already and the work still to be completed, where would you say you are in the process?
Well, we have been given 2 years by the Prime Minister to accomplish two things. One is to create an interoperable public service, so linking all the units together. And the second one is to introduce an e-identity, and we are still seeking to achieve that. We are a couple of months behind where I would have liked us to be, but that is because one of the huge challenges in public admin when we started on this road is that public admin had been shrunk to a very small ministry. I think we're probably the smallest ministry in the government. And therefore, one of the things we had to address very early on, and we are still in the process of addressing it, is ramping up on the resources. So, for example, I would like to have a properly oriented member of my team in each of the ministries, working alongside them as they come up with all of their plans, because everything that you do has an impact on the digitalization. And therefore, unless we understand exactly what you do, and unless we assist you in re-engineering the process, or engineering the process, we won't get to the ultimate result. So one of the things that is keeping us back is the fact that it's taking a while for us to get the right resources and get them in the ministries. But we're working on that, and we will get that soon enough. But we are aiming to achieve the Prime Minister's mandate, which is a 2-year turnaround on interoperability and introduction of an e-identity. But in the meantime, we're working with different ministries, especially the more frontline ones, to try to introduce to the public enhancements on the service that we provide.
And so those 2 years started at the beginning of your term, or the government's term last year?
That is correct.
Okay, so, but you're not yet at 50%, or, in terms of achieving that objective over the next 2 years?
Well, what we have done is we basically finished the planning, which is the hardest part. So now we have to start with the implementation. We do have some wrapping up to do in terms of the delivery. I would say that we are a little less than 50%. So we do have some catching up to do. But now that we have identified the plan and we are beginning to roll it out, I think we can catch up. We can do some catching up now.
And what kind of traction have you got from public servants themselves, who sometimes, I know it could be challenging depending on, who you meet, where they are. We know government officials have talked tirelessly about the opposition or recalcitrance they encounter sometimes from public servants. Has it been difficult for you to get them on board this process?
We have had mixed reactions from the public servants. Some of them are very actively involved. The ICT people, for example, who of course are ingrained in the system, are more inclined to say, well, yes, we can do this, and no, we can't do that. We're happy to try new things. The others are slower in joining the bandwagon, but we are working with them to get them there. And part of the program as well is also retraining and reskilling of these people, because there is fear there. When people hear about digitalization, the first concern is, if you put machines in, you need fewer people, and therefore is my job at risk? So we have pushback based on that. We have pushback based on the fact that people are comfortable and don't want to relearn what they have spent their lives learning. So there is that hesitancy, but we're working with them, and we are developing a program to retrain and retool them so that as we digitalize, they are able to deal with their jobs differently and have a different approach, and most importantly, a different mindset, or as Tony Watkins was telling us, a different mindscape.
Minister, just one very quick question before we go. Is cost a factor in keeping back or holding back this process? Because I imagine it couldn't be a cheap process or a cheap transformational process for you.
Cost is a factor, I think, in everything that we do in government. We have to prioritize our spend because our resources are more limited than they previously were. But I will freely acknowledge that the government was very, quote unquote, generous with the ministry when we went to them and said, these are our plans and this is the kind of budget that we want. We got a significant increase in the budget with the change of title to Public Admin and Digital Transformation, and the Prime Minister is on board, the Minister of Finance on board, my other ministers are with me, and they're seeing the benefits of what we can reap. So I think that we will continue to get some priority in the budgeting process.
Minister, thank you so very much for chatting with us this morning on the UN observance of Public Servants Day. And we look forward to hearing more about the digitization process and that your ministry is currently undergoing. Thank you so much. All right, so we get ready for more of your submissions now. Here are a couple ginger lily images, the red and the pink by Lenora. Thank you, Lenora, for these. And now we have a popular flora submission, the Crown of Thorns. Yes, it's not the first time I'm seeing this one. I know many of you have seen it many times before as well. This one is sent to us by Mr. Singh. Thank you very much for your submissions, folks. There is more of Morning Edition when we return.